On the morning of March 14th, 2021, at exactly 9:42 a.m., a licensed medical examiner signed the official declaration. Time of death was recorded as 8:17 a.m., caused by acute cardiac arrest. The body had been identified, documented, and released. The paperwork was completed, and the legal system considered the matter closed. There was no ambiguity, no suspicion of foul play, and no immediate reason to investigate further. It was the sudden death of a 36-year-old man found alone in his apartment. In every official sense, the case was final. He was gone. 2 days later, that certainty collapsed. At 11:26 p.m. on March 16th, his primary email account was accessed. The system recorded a successful login, not an attempt. Data was exchanged during an active session. At first, it appeared to be a technical anomaly, perhaps a sync error or delayed log entry. But investigators quickly confirmed the login was real. It came from a valid IP address, a recognized device, and a verified credential set. The system had no reason to reject it, which raised a disturbing question. If he had already been declared dead, who was using his account? The man was known for routine and discipline. He worked as a remote data analyst, lived alone, and maintained strict digital habits. Strong passwords, two-factor authentication, encrypted storage. Nothing about his online behavior suggested vulnerability. His life was predictable, structured, and largely private. On March 13th, neighbors reported not seeing him for over a day. A welfare check was requested the next morning. Authorities entered his apartment at 8:05 a.m. on March 14th and found him unresponsive in bed. There were no signs of forced entry, struggle, or trauma. Emergency responders arrived quickly, but he was pronounced dead at 8:17 a.m. The medical examiner confirmed sudden cardiac arrest, likely during sleep. A death certificate was issued the same day, and the case appeared straightforward. Everything changed with the login. Investigators first re-verified the death. Fingerprints matched official records. Dental confirmation supported identification. The timeline from discovery to declaration was fully documented. There was no evidence of misidentification or procedural error. He was, without doubt, deceased. Attention then shifted to the digital breach. The IP address linked to the login trace to a residential network less than 3 kilometers from his apartment. No VPN or anonymization tools were detected. More importantly, the device signature matched one previously used by him, a laptop already registered in his account history. The operating system, browser version, and hardware identifiers all aligned. This was not an intrusion by an unknown hacker. It was access from a trusted device. But a problem emerged during inventory checks. His desktop computer had been recovered from the apartment. However, a secondary laptop was missing. It had not been logged or seized during the initial search. That gap changed everything. The investigation expanded to his recent contacts. 2 weeks before his death, he had reconnected with a former business associate. Communication had increased steadily, emails, calls, and meetings. Phone records confirmed a final call on March 13th at 10:48 p.m., lasting just under 4 minutes. It was his last known interaction. The associate described the call as routine. The location data placed him near his apartment that night. Not inside, but close enough to be relevant. That detail alone wasn't conclusive, but combined with other findings, it became significant. The login on March 16th originated from a residential IP address tied to the associate. The missing laptop, the recognized device, and the login location began forming a pattern. Investigators now had to determine intent. During that login session, specific files were accessed and downloaded. These were not casual documents. They were encrypted financial records stored in cloud storage. Upon analysis, they revealed structured transactions moving through intermediary accounts. The associate's name appeared multiple times, not as a direct recipient, but as a facilitator in the flow of funds. This changed the direction of the case. The login was no longer an anomaly. It was purposeful. Whoever accessed the account knew exactly what they were looking for. The associate initially denied involvement beyond professional contact, but evidence contradicted that statement. Device correlation, IP tracing, and access logs all pointed toward their involvement. The missing laptop provided a critical link. It had been used to access the account after death. The timeline was reconstructed. Death occurred at 8:17 a.m. on March 14th. The apartment was secured shortly after. The laptop went missing before or during that window. On March 13th night, the associate was near the residence. 2 days later, at 11:26 p.m. on March 16th, the account was accessed using that same device. The question shifted from who logged in to why. The downloaded financial files provided the answer. They contained evidence of unresolved financial disputes and transactions that suggested concealed monetary movement. The associate had both access and motive. Further review of forensic data revealed inconsistencies in earlier assumptions about the death. Certain medical findings, initially considered routine, were re-examined in context. While no single factor proved wrongdoing, the combined digital and financial evidence suggested the death could not be viewed in isolation. The investigation ultimately centered on convergence. Physical presence, device access, digital login records, and financial evidence all intersecting within a narrow timeline. The login event became the focal point because it demonstrated post-death activity tied directly to the deceased's identity. It was no longer possible to treat the account activity as error or coincidence. It was structured, intentional access. Someone had used his identity after his death to retrieve information that mattered. The case was reopened. What had once been classified as natural death became part of a broader investigation into financial misconduct and unauthorized access to digital identity. In the end, the most unsettling detail was not the death itself, but what followed it. A verified login, a recognized device, a residential IP address, and a set of actions that only made sense if someone had deliberately continued using a dead man's identity. He was declared gone, but the truth logged in later.